start off with the wrong open there. But thank you for hanging in there with us, and welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. It's the last day of in-season tournament group play. So we've got 8 games on the docket, a lot of interesting scenarios to walk through. If you are interested in understanding more about the group play scenarios and dynamics, we are not going to cover that in this show. The reason is we did an entire podcast on it, in-depth review, about 25 to 30 minutes of analysis, breaking down all the if-then scenarios that you need to know. Check it out on the Established Run NBA podcast feed, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Mike, are you ready for the final day of in-season tournament group play?
I'm amped. Got a hike in. I'm glad to see the chat is responding today after being really quiet until we got some injury news. So happy to see everyone's feeling lively. We'll talk about Derek Lively in a little bit with his Q tag. But yeah, not too much, but pretty big ones. We got a Q tag out already with Jimmy, which kind of seemed likely. I thought that would have been interesting if we got that late. But yeah, excited to break it down.
Yep. All right, let's get into it from a game-by-game perspective. Let's start with Atlanta and Cleveland. Nothing on the Atlanta side to be concerned about in terms of motivation side of things. These teams really have very limited hopes of being able to convert anything into the in-season group play here. Cleveland has, more of a shot than Atlanta. So Atlanta just kind of playing out the string. No Jalen Johnson. We're going to miss him for a long time. We saw Sadiq Bey slide into the starting lineup. What other thoughts do you have for Atlanta here?
Yeah, a couple insta fouls for Sadiq. I think Sadiq could play a lot here. I just think that he's a better fit for how they want to play. They run obviously a lot of pace. They certainly want to play small, and there's really no one else that could fill in. We'll see if they maybe, we've seen a couple teams go double big at times. We saw the Nuggets do it against the Cavs. A couple teams did it last year. The Hawks did it against the Knicks, actually. So maybe this is a spot we see a Kongwu Capella overlap. And then the only other note, again, obviously the minutes could be really there. DeAndre Hunter played freaking 40. So, they could play quite a bit. And then lastly, Wesley Matthews was behind AJ Griffin. I think this was back-to-back related. So I wouldn't be surprised if Matthews kind of takes the lead as the second bench guy on the wing after Bogdan.
Still minutes limitations on Wesley Matthews, though. So he might check in first, but might play the same amount, right? That would be kind of the expectation there. Okay.
Oh, it doesn't matter if Griffin gets cut. Like if Griffin is booted, they could run it tight. Is kind of the story here.
Yeah, but without Matthews being able to get up there, I guess the path to doing that would be like everybody 35 plus on on the rest of the guys. So it would be real tight, because that'd basically be, if they cut Griffin entirely, that would basically be a 6.5 man rotation. Maybe 7 if they can stretch West to 15 minutes or something like that, minus the center spot, right? The center spot being kind of fully attributed to Capella.
Might overlap them though. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some overlap today. We're not going to project that, but
they're just so thin. I don't know if they can do that. I think we'd have to see a decent bit of AJ Griffin to do that. We might even have to see Garrison Matthews to do some of that stuff. It's messy. All right, Cleveland side of things. Nothing notable here. Dean Wade is out. Ty Jerome is out. Isaiah Mobley, the G Leaguer, out. No listings for Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland, which is a reprieve. We've had a lot of listings for those two early in the season. What are your notes here on Cleveland?
Yeah, and Garland neck strain aggravation was called doubtful on the front end of a back-to-back. Went out there and played full. Played really well against the Raptors. Donovan Mitchell returning from his hamstring strain. Missed some time with that. Came in there, was a little limited, but pretty full in a back-to-back set. Didn't play well. OG will do that to you though. So expect this to be similar. We saw Craig Porter Jr. lose his rotation spot and basically lost it to Tristan Thompson, who it was kind of the reverse the other way against Atlanta. Probably, I would say it's more of a Craig Porter Jr. spot here. I'll be looking at minutes after this, but that's kind of where I'm at here. And then Okoro, he had that injury management tag. He hasn't really been unleashed either. So I think his minutes are pretty safe. We've seen Karis LeVert's minutes be pretty inconsistent. He lost some big fourth quarter minutes over the weekend to Craig Porter Jr. as well. So keeping an eye on that. They want to play Craig Porter Jr. It's tough. I mean, with your, the Max Strus played awesome, by the way. He's really secure. This starting five is locked and loaded, and you got LeVert. They like Niang, Okoro. They really like for defense, so it's kind of tough for him to get in there. And we know Bickerstafford's pretty tight.
And then Cleveland does have sort of an outside chance at qualifying for the in-season tournament, but they would need to put up a really big number tonight against Atlanta. So it will be interesting to see if they are points chasing late in this game, if starters are extended a little bit more, even if it's a non-competitive game environment, just trying to see if they can qualify for the in-season tournament. They would need to put up a really big number, though, as discussed in the podcast. All right, Charlotte and New York. On the Charlotte side of things, no LaMelo Ball tonight. He's out with the right ankle strain. James Bouknight listed available after left knee surgery. They're also without Cody Martin, Frank Ntilikina, Nick Richards, and some of the G League guys. What are your expectations for how Charlotte fills the huge role in the absence of LaMelo Ball?
Yeah, so let's just talk LaMelo and some background here. This is the right ankle. This is the injury that ended his season last year and required surgery. Before that, this was the good ankle. But now it's not the good ankle anymore. He's got like 2 bad ankles. It's going quite poorly for his ankles, so expect him to probably miss a little bit more time. Doesn't sound serious, but returning from a ankle injury and he had surgery on it, they're going to be cautious, and they always have been. We saw how long he missed early in the year last year, so it's to cover that. They got Terry Rozier back, and he got thrown into the fire here from a standpoint. Clifford calls him probably their best player. We know we can handle a lot. So Rozier is going to have a huge role going forward. Brandon Miller, who was going to lose minutes, he's back now, so he'll be getting the starting lineup. They're going to continue to start Miles Bridges, Gordon Hayward as well, Mark Williams as well. Those guys are kind of locked and loaded. We'll probably see a lot of Ish Smith, a little bit of overlap. Certainly PJ Washington getting close to starters minutes. Those will be kind of the main guys. And then you're probably looking for some JT Thor, McGowan's, maybe Teo, those guys in the mix. But, those clear 7 guys, I think could have pretty big roles here. And we've seen at times, Terry Rozier just coming off injury comes up with a 37 minutes. So, I think he's in a pretty good spot. And in matchups, it's pretty good. 3-point funnel. Really good rebounding team, but guards have been able to produce a little bit against the Knicks.
Yeah, and I was wondering on our podcast about what this line would look like and whether it would look kind of play-in adjusted. The line is somewhere between 11.5 and 12, depending on the books that you're looking at. That is definitely a play-in adjusted line. I would not expect the Knicks normally to be favored by 11.5 or 12 in this spot against Charlotte, even without LaMelo Ball. I think it would be more like an 8.5, 9 would be my guess in those spots, maybe 9.5 up to there. That's just off a feel. That's not off of any modeling or anything like that. But I do think this is adjusted for the Knicks being incentivized to run things up. Do you think there is downside risk to the Charlotte side of the equation? They have nothing to play for in terms of if this game gets out of hand. We know Charlotte will play like really tight naturally. We see in this game here against Orlando, they lose by 13, but they were within 6 going into the fourth quarter. So this was a relatively tight game. What are your thoughts? We've seen them play the Knicks twice already this year, 1 competitive game, 1 blowout game. What are your thoughts on downside risk for the Hornets tonight? Because we know they're going to play really tight without LaMelo Ball, and that leads to a lot of upside. But what do you think the downside is for kind of the main guys here?
Oh, it's there. I mean, they got bodies. They're missing the high end guys, but they're going to have Theo Maledon, Bryce McGowan. I think Leaky Black's up. They got Nick Smith. Maybe Mark Williams could be safe, but they've run JT Thor as a 5. So JT Thor could be a last guy in, also get garbage time. So yeah, they got nothing to play for, double digit spread, as you mentioned. So there's certainly downside, but hey, the blowout game has been, a tough one to win predict if you're playing the blowouts. But so I think there is certainly downside against a good Knicks interior defense, but against a team that, if Rozier doesn't have his fastball, then I think this is going to probably be a blowout because the Knicks do lock down the inside. So that's trouble for Bridges, trouble for Mark Williams, obviously, trouble for PJ Washington to a lesser degree, who can space the floor a little bit. So that spread does seem to be pretty warranted. I'm not betting into it, but just want to note that should be a big spread.
All right, Knicks side of things, they are fully healthy. The only guys listed on the injury report are G League related guys. So what are your news and notes here around a Knicks team that I would expect to see heavy minutes from their starters, regardless of kind of game condition tonight? As we noted and broke down in the pod, they are in the catbird seat for the wild card berth out of the East. And to do so, they just need to pile it on. They need to win and win by a lot. And as long as they do that, they've got a built-in points advantage over other teams. They win by another 20 tonight against Charlotte. It's going to make other teams have to win by 40. So what are your expectations for the Knicks tonight?
Yeah, they're going to pile it on. So, yeah, I think you can kind of play them pretty deep into this game. We know Tibbs has been a late plug puller as well. So, I mean, they'd have to be up really big. But if they're up really big, they probably scored a lot. So, I think obviously you can be worried about the Charlotte downside. But the downside, as far as minutes are concerned, isn't as bad here. Because, again, they just got to pile it on. We talked about the Suns. We were surprised when they had that front end of back-to-back against, I think it was the Blazers. And they ran them out there. When we talked about it, like it kind of dismissively because we thought that they were kind of screwed. And it turns out that running it up, that last couple of buckets, like may get them in. So, I think there's a really important chance that we saw the Raptors do it to the Bulls on Friday. Like Pascal Siakam was still going for buckets and scoring. And Bam had a comment today about the integrity of the league. And some players like it, some players don't. But, the players know that, especially now that the word's out. So, I think that, it's going to be not a lot of garbage time on the Knicks side.
Yeah. Someone in chat mentioning that that's their path or the Heat beating the Bucks.
Yep.
If the Heat beat the Bucks, just for reference here, then in the Knicks win, that's a 3-way tie, goes down to point differential again. Sure, the Bucks might have that advantage over the Knicks, but we're saying if the Heat beat the Bucks in that spot, the Bucks would come down from plus 39. The Knicks could still surpass that, but the Knicks wouldn't need to surpass that because they'd still be in position for the wild card unless the Heat beat the Bucks by more than the Knicks beat. And if that's the case, then the Knicks are probably getting past the Bucks. So the point being, the Knicks just need to take care of their own business. If they pile it up against Charlotte, they're good to go, kind of no matter what, outside of like really unusual situations. Okay, let's move to Chicago and Boston. Chicago side of things, Alex Caruso questionable with a left toe strain, Zach LaVine questionable right foot soreness. Those are the two big names on the injury report. What are your expectations here for the Bulls?
Sounds like they're both going to be in. LaVine has been getting this Q tag. It's the second or third time straight he's had the Q tag. He was getting the P tag going into it. He's been playing through it, went through shoot around. So pretty much all indications are that LaVine will be back. Alex Caruso hurt his toe again over the weekend. Someone stepped on it, according to Billy Donovan. This is the same foot that was keeping him out or limited with the Q tag as well. So it looks like he's back, but be careful. He's playing with a toe injury that's going to possibly limit him or be a quick plug pull situation if he aggravates it again, because this is bothering him. So keep an eye on that. But again, I would expect LaVine to be out there. Some trade talk kind of flying around the interwebs there that maybe could be a factor. We saw earlier this month he got the P tag. Billy Donovan said that he was going to play. Training staff told him he was going to play, and then LaVine goes out there, doesn't feel well. So yeah, be very careful about firing into LaVine if you're looking for bets regarding his status, because it could change pretty quickly.
Yep. All right, Boston side of things. Drew Holiday questionable here with that right ankle sprain. Kristaps Porzingis out. Derek White probable illness, non-COVID related. So they are a little bit banged up here. And Boston is a team that, look, it's going to be interesting tonight because they've had some players comments about not liking the run it up. They're going up against a Bulls team that did not like the run it up. But the only way Boston is getting into this in-season tournament is by running it all the way up. They cannot win their division that's not true. They can win their group if Brooklyn beats Toronto, and that sets off a 3-way tie. Then they would need to win tonight by more than 22 points to have a shot at winning the group. To win the wild card spot, they need to win by more than 18 points and whatever the Knicks add on top of that. So they need to win by 30 or 40 tonight to really have like a legitimate shot, at least by 22 to have kind of the first shot. So this looks like a spot that they would be theoretically running it up if their players were open to running it up. They are a little bit shorthanded tonight. What are your expectations for Boston?
Yeah, this is a Joe Mazzulla dream scenario. He gets to run it up, and he gets to do it against the biggest three-point defense in the NBA, a three-point funnel defense, meaning they allow a lot. So they are going to bomb threes in this spot, in my opinion. I think we're going to see with Drew, we'll see. Don't really know. He's been missing time with this. Doesn't sound like it's been bad. He's been getting kind of ruled out late-ish relative to when he was filed. So got a shot to play. And then also should mention Joe Mazzulla. We saw Joe Mazzulla go 9 in this spot, and Namias Keita kind of out of nowhere gets minutes, and then somewhat also out of nowhere, Delano Banton, played pretty well. Picking up some defensive assignments with some Trae Young, some DeJounte and stuff. So if Drew's out, probably going to go that way again. You would certainly want that against, probably he would pick up Levine, I would say. He might actually get DeRozan and then put Derek White on Levine. But anyways, I kind of digress. But I think Drew's got a shot to play. But I just think they might shoot like 63s tonight. And again, they got to run it up here. I think they want to get this win. It means a lot to them. So I would expect them to go through this thing almost the whole way to hope they can advance.
Have you heard coaching quotes or commentary that suggests Boston will indeed run it up? I just saw the one media clip from Tatum going around that he was frustrated. But I also will note, you have to understand the timing of when these guys are asked these questions as well. That's a question that comes right after a loss that is a frustrating loss. Naturally, they're like in a frustrated state and they're getting asked about the other team trying to add points on at the end. I think you're going to get that kind of leading question answered that way. But have you heard any commentary on Boston that suggests that they will indeed try to fire away?
No, I haven't seen anything yet. The only thing I'll note that was interesting, there was kind of a hint from Joe Mazzulla running this 9-man saying like, hey, we go to 8 sometimes. That like sets it up to me that they're going to probably run 8 today. So, I mean, they could just be like, we could see some huge minute totals. So yeah, I think they, like you mentioned, Tatum's kind of bad taste in his mouth, all that. These guys are competitors, man. Like they want to go out there and win everything they can. So
yeah,
I think it means a lot
I would
to
also note, just thinking of the coaching situation here, the game against Orlando that they lost, I was paying attention to, was the Friday after Thanksgiving, because we had Al Horford overs in that game with Chris Kristaps ruled out, and they did not hit. But Horford was in the game with like a minute 30 left still. They played those guys till the end, down like 15-20 in that game. So Joe Mazzulla, that was a hint to me that he's keeping track of like what is going on for this whole thing in terms of the in-season tournament. So I would expect Boston to really try to lay it on tonight. Okay, Milwaukee and Miami. On the Milwaukee side, Chris Middleton is questionable with left Achilles tendonitis. They are without Jay Crowder still. What is your read on Chris Middleton's availability tonight?
Yeah, not great. Gets injured over the weekend, ruled out pretty quick. Doesn't play in the next game. So I think he's going to miss. That obviously secures Malik Beasley's minutes. We'll see if they go to Andre Jackson or Connaughton. Certainly a big game here. They want to get this game, not have to worry about all the tiebreaker stuff. But yeah, I kind of think he's going to miss. Could be wrong. Maybe it sounds scary, right? Like Achilles tendonitis sounds like a terrifying injury. But yeah, it'll be a lot of Bobby Portis. He was called a jack of all trades. They ran some post-up stuff through him against the Blazers, which is a really smart thing to do with how bad their defense is. But yeah, so it would be, if he's out, I would expect Andre to probably start real light minutes. Almost went 12 trillion. Snuck a rebound in there to avoid that. But yeah, a little more minutes for Connaughton than the last matchup. Bobby Portis probably doesn't get to 30s, but he might. They might run it tight here. To get this win. Well, they might not need to because they could just get in there with the win. So the running up stuff isn't as important as we've been saying here. Just get a win and you're good. But Miami's really short-handed, which we'll get to.
Yeah, Milwaukee has no incentive to win by a certain amount. It's just win. They do have incentive to not lose by a certain amount if it gets to that point, but generally just win is the ticket for Milwaukee. So would expect full minutes from their main guys tonight. But if they're up by a lot, you could expect them to kind of pull the plug on things potentially. Okay. Miami side of things, Jimmy Butler has been ruled out. He was listed questionable on the last injury report update, but it has been updated for him out. Haywood Highsmith is questionable. Probable tags on Bam Adebayo and Duncan Robinson. They're, of course, still without Tyler Hero. What are your expectations for how the Heat start in the absence of Jimmy Butler?
So a lot going on here. Duncan Robinson, full MRI scan, came back clean. He was day-to-day. I expect him to start and be pretty full here. Haywood Highsmith sounds like he's biggest risk. Was limited in practice with what was described as an above his tailbone injury. So I guess that's the sacrum. Shout out to my anatomy teachers from college. But yeah, so Bam's back, full practice. They kind of set him out, sent him more of a maintenance thing from stuff he was going through. We talked about the hip thing that he couldn't jump the day before, and then he's out there and he played pretty full, but should be back. Jovic is going to go away. Caleb Martin played 31 minutes after the game. Eric Spoelstra said he played him too much, so he's probably coming back to the lower 20s range now that they should have A little bit more depth. Maybe not though. Caleb's kind of talked about some like progress he wants to step along there, but having Duncan Robinson back, I think kind of cuts the need to play Caleb heavy minutes there. And we'll see if the Kevin Love Thomas Bryant thing splits. It should be Kevin Love behind him. Cole Swider probably goes away. Maybe Jamal Cain has earned a little bit more minutes kind of going forward with some injuries here, and because he's been playing great, been playing really well for the Sioux Falls team. So it's a little murky. Certainly expect, I may have buried the lead here, but I would expect Jaime Jaquez to continue to get the start. It might be Richardson, but I think Jaquez has just been too good to take out. That way you can kind of stagger your ball handling a little bit with Richardson and Lowry. But really tough spot against a really potent Milwaukee offense. Certainly their defense is not as good, but I think that Milwaukee could kind of get smoked here defensively with missing Jimmy, who's important to their defensive structure.
So
actually, one more thing if I can add, they run a lot more zone when Jimmy's out, so that's something that we'll talk a little bit about on the DFS show.
Expected starters with Jimmy out and Hero out would be Lowry, Duncan Robinson, Bam Adebayo, Jaime Jaquez, and Kyle Lowry, right? Did I say Kyle Lowry twice?
Well, Lowry, Highsmith, miss Highsmith. I think Highsmith plays. I could be wrong, though. He was limited.
If Highsmith does not play, do you think it's Jaquez and Richardson in the starting lineup in that scenario, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty small. No, I think they'd go Caleb.
Okay.
So if that makes sense. So if Duncan's in, and then if Duncan's in and Highsmith's out, Lowry, Duncan, Jaquez, Caleb, Bam.
Okay. With Caleb getting the Giannis assignment?
Uh-huh.
Tough time for a guy on you're concerned about playing him too much, and you've got Giannis on the other side. All right, let's move to Toronto and Brooklyn. Toronto side, Grady Dick is on G League assignment, along with Ron Harper Jr. and Javon Freeman Liberty and Marquise Noel. Christian Coloco out with respiratory illness. No other notes on the Raptors here, who are largely healthy. No Precious Achiuwa on the injury report. No OG Anunoby or Gary Trent on the injury report. So what are we thinking with the Raptors tonight?
Should be pretty straightforward here. There was some commentary about winning more spacing, but they played Pirtle 35 minutes in the last game, so I don't know about that. We saw a little bit of Boucher at the 4. But yeah, that's they're going to run a little bit bigger now that Grady Dick is out of the mix. We'll see if Malachi Flynn's minutes can hold up. Looks like they're going to. Gary Trent didn't really shoot the ball well, but still held his minutes up pretty strong. So yeah, I feel pretty secure about that starting 5. Gary Trent being the main bench piece, Precious getting the non-Pirtles. Maybe we'll see a little bit of Flynn, maybe a little bit of Boucher push and pull there against the Nets. So you probably want a little more spacing, so maybe more of a Flynn spot than a Boucher spot, but don't have a great read on that. But we know the main 7 guys.
All right, Brooklyn Nets side of things, questionable tag for Dennis Smith Jr. Still without Ben Simmons and Cam Thomas, but Cam Johnson probable and Nick Claxton listed available. What are your notes on the Nets and the likelihood of Dennis Smith Jr. returning?
Let's start with Claxton. Had an injury over the weekend and almost hit for the status cycle as he got a Q tag and an O tag on a probable tag and all that stuff. Missed the doubtful tag. But he's back, ruled up, called up as available. Sounds pretty minor, so I expect him to be pretty full on minutes. They're still running him short stints. We've been seeing every time they bring in Day'Ron Sharpe really early in the first. But the minutes have been there. He's been able to hit 30s sometimes. So I think he's going to be out there with close to full. I think we're taking a minute off for a little bit of ramp-up injury, given how he's kind of had a rough start here. They are incentivized, so we could be completely wrong. So maybe we should give that minute back, given the way that they're incentivized to win this game. But, yeah, starting lineup's going to certainly be Spencer Dinwiddie, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, who should mention had cramping, missed some time. He's listed as probable. Should be good. He's had some leg quad issue. I'm sorry, he had a hamstring injury in the preseason and then a calf injury early on in the year that cost him time. So keep an eye on him. Probably has a little bit of a minutes limit there. And then Dorian Finney-Smith and Nick Claxton will be the starting 5. Royce O'Neal will be a main bench piece. Lonnie Walker as well. And then Day'Ron Sharpe will be the main 8. A little bit of Trenton Wofford if they do go 9. But they might just run an 8 because this is a big game for them.
Yeah, Brooklyn needs a win by more than 14 points and a Boston win, and they need to outscore. They need to out point differential Boston, maintain their 8-point lead or better there, or they need a win in a Boston loss. to win their group because they did beat Orlando, so they have the tiebreaker over Orlando there. Okay, let's go to OKC in Minnesota. OKC injury report clean, so nothing to really touch on there. Minnesota side still without Jaden McDaniels and Jordan McLaughlin. Any notes on this game?
No. Oh, well, J-Dub's back. Went through practice, so expect him to be out there, get full minutes. Some really interesting commentary. I just love Mark Dagnall, man. Like the way he just talks about defensive structures and roles, and we talked about SGA in the offseason about his steals rate growing, and that was really hammering home. They're using him to get in passing lanes so much; it's just yielding such good steals numbers for SGA. So yeah, expect Casey Wallace to go back to the bench. Certainly, will still get minutes. And then, a lot of J. Will over the weekend, which was not surprising. He started the second half. You had mentioned that he was a dark horse to start in our Slack, and I was like, it's pretty sharp, and he starts the second half. But so that role will be diminished here, maybe a little bit, not a lot. I still expect him to get the non-chats, and I think they maybe go to it here to put a body on Cat as well. So, something to watch. And then obviously Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins minutes kind of get cut here, I would say. That mostly covers it. And Kenrich Williams, I think, could be, Kenrich Williams and Wiggins, I could see splitting depending on the matchup. It's a bigger one, which usually calls for Kenrich Williams. So I would lean him being kind of a bigger piece than Aaron Wiggins would be.
Yeah. The J Will stuff to me was purely matchup driven with Embiid, but
100%.
this is a matchup that could facilitate that again. So certainly could happen again. Embiid is not the same. Guarding Embiid is not the same as almost anybody else. Like Jokic might require the same, but they're going to try to protect Chet from those types of matchups the best that they can, would be my guess. And Chet was phenomenal in this game.
Should mention J-Dub can guard Cat. That's something that would be the move. He would put J-Will on Cat. But I think J-Dub could hold his own. He sounds pretty healthy from returning from practice.
Yeah, I think J. Will is unlikely to get boosted heavily in this matchup, but it's possible. All right, and then nothing
in the foul trouble.
Yeah, nothing on the Minnesota side.
It was interesting that they said that they wanted a Mike Conley-driven game plan against his former team. That was a note that stuck out to me. But other than that, we're going to see Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He will almost certainly get his cousin here in SGA. And then that's pretty much it. Ant was played through injury. You still hear me? Am I freaking watching?
Yep.
Got me?
Yep.
Okay. Played through injury, full minutes. Didn't talk about it after the game. So it should be pretty good to go.
Okay. Let's move to Houston and Dallas. On the Houston side of things, Dylan Brooks, Tari Eason, Jayshawn Tate, Fred VanVleet, all with those dreaded probable tags. We haven't seen Houston mess around with probable tags, so I'm hopeful here. Still without Amen Thompson, of course. Any notes on the Houston side of things? They still have plenty to play for. If they are able to secure a win tonight, very simply, they win their group and they are in the play-in because they have the tiebreaker advantage over New Orleans. So they are in a win in your in situation. No need for point differential, nothing on that sort. They just got to win. What are your notes on the Houston probable tags?
Yeah, this is the wink. We're on a back-to-back probable thing. So they play Denver, who they played on Friday. They've been off, so they'll get Denver again after beating them twice. So they're playing Denver early this year. But I expect full minutes here. Again, when you're in kind of situation. So Jabari, we're seeing the minutes there. That's really not much to add. I expect the main 8, Tari Eason, Jayshawn Tate, Aaron Holiday being the main 8. We'll see if Jeff Green sneaks in there. I think Landale's pretty much gone, especially in this matchup against Luka. We know the traditional centers get cooked here. So I think that's kind of the plan. But we could see, again, they got to win this game against a good Dallas team in Dallas. So we could see Şengün played 43 minutes against Joker.
This is exactly what I was going to highlight. This is another group in-season tournament game.
Yep.
It's a game that you can see they win by 19. Going into the fourth quarter, they're up by 15. That game was never really in doubt. Denver really struggled to generate offense without Jokic. That game was never really in doubt. And look at the numbers on the minutes you got on these guys. Jabari, 38. Şengün, 43. VanVleet, 39. Jalen Green, 36. The only reason Dylan Brooks 30 there is he got into a lot of foul trouble in this one. So expect very, very hefty minutes from Houston tonight.
Yep.
Okay. Dallas side of things. in terms of their motivations and playing, they got nothing here, unless they are big fans of the New Orleans Pelicans, which I don't know if they are. But they got nothing to play for from that perspective. Just playing through for the regular season counting here. Derek Lively questionable with the low back contusion. They're without Maxi Kleber as well. What are your expectations around Derek Lively's availability tonight?
Should be good. Went through practice. I think he had a starter's jersey on as well, so I expect him to get the starting lineup there. Yeah, keep an eye on it. It looked terrible. I thought he was going to get worse than like a back contusion tag, so it's nice to see he even has a chance to return today. So I would expect him to start. We'll see what they do with the backup center minutes. Rashawn Holmes is starting to play pretty well. Actually got the start, didn't do anything with it. But I could see Rashawn Holmes taking some non-center minutes. We still don't have Maxi Kleber back. Should mention Luka Doncic. We saw him hurt his wrist in this game I have on the screen. Got an MRI, came back clean. He's good to go. Don't think it'll affect his minutes here. We know he can play a lot too. So, not a back-to-back set. They've been off for a little bit here as well. So could be, they're not incentivized, but I could see the minutes getting pretty tight on both sides.
All right. Golden State and Sacramento. Last game of the in-season tournament group play, and a big one from Group C's perspective. Sacramento is win and you're in, and you get a home game in the opening quarterfinals, which we all know how important those home games for Sacramento and the Beam is. Lose, and things get shakier from Sacramento's perspective. They need to lose by 14 or fewer points to Golden State to be able to hold, 13 or fewer points to Golden State to be able to hold the tiebreaker over Golden State. But if they lost, they would need that tiebreaker to be implemented, the point differential tiebreaker to be implemented by a Minnesota win. So if they lose and Minnesota loses, Golden State advances. If they lose and Minnesota wins, then it's point differential tiebreaker, which Sacramento has a big heads up advantage there. Golden State getting back Draymond Green. Nobody else listed on the injury report for them, just Usman Garuba, who I honestly did not even know was a Golden State Warrior until this moment. What are your thoughts on reincorporating Draymond Green into the rotation tonight?
Yeah, so pull it up. He is not going to have a formal minutes limit according to Steve Kerr, so that's worth noting. Of course, every time he said there is conditioning to be keeping an eye on, but they should be fine there. Of course, when you play the Kings, you got to talk about Kevon Looney. How many minutes is he going to play? I expect him to start. So I'd expect the starting lineup we'd see Chris Paul back to the bench to be Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond, and Looney would be the starting five. Certainly Chris Paul would still have a really sizable bench. We'll see how much minutes Dario and Kuminga can get. I think Gary Payton too has been a staple to guard Fox. So I think Wiggins' minutes could be on ice a little bit, although he's been playing a little bit better. And should shout out Klay Thompson had a comment about continuing to start, and he kind of went off on a reporter, Tim Kawakami, who does really good work. I love his podcast, and he let him have it, man. If you have time to Google Klay Thompson starting, whatever, you could find it. He's wearing a Tennessee Titans hat if you're looking for the picture of it. But expect this to be, I kind of line up the rotation. No limits for Draymond as long as his conditioning is okay, and I expect it will be.
And Looney, obviously, you would think, just based on adding Draymond Green to the mix, you would think this is a minutes downgrade spot naturally, but the matchup with Sabonis has been one he's handled so well. So your expectation is that he just kind of holds on to the minutes that he's had before, or do you think, and who would be vulnerable here to lose minutes in a big way? Is it Kuminga? Is it Saric? Mm-hmm. Who are the guys that are most vulnerable if the matchup drives Looney's minutes higher?
Yeah, Saric, right? I mean, they've been splitting those 7 minutes pretty hard. We're getting 4, 5, 6 minutes of overlap, and that's with Draymond out. So I think the overlap's going to probably go away here. So I think Saric probably doesn't have a ceiling today, and then Kuminga is Draymond affected. I think he gets pretty cut because they just need to guard D, right? You need someone to guard De'Aaron Fox, so you need at all times one of Wiggins or GP2. That's it. Like you have to have them on the court, no doubt. So. We'll see if GP2 does affect Wiggins. That's something that we have to consider when we're doing minutes. I'll look at that after this. But I think Saric and Kuminga are certainly and Pods. We've seen Pods kind of pop in here. So those guys would be at risk.
Yeah, committed to playing Pods until he's terrible for a week straight, and then we're not committed to playing Pods. Is probably the way it's going to go.
Goes. That's the curve.
Kings side of things, Keegan Murray listed doubtful here with that left SI joint irritation. Alex Len out. Keon Ellis questionable with left ankle sprain. What are your notes on the Kings?
Bit surprised he got the D tag. He went through a full practice. Mike Brown said that he had a few more boxes to check to get cleared. So that raises a question, right? Obviously, doubtful tag. The untrained eye will assume he's not playing. Now, the trained eye will tell you that De'Aaron Fox had a doubtful tag, and he wound up playing when he did have that tag. So keep an eye on that. Maybe Keegan does check the boxes that he needs to check, and for him to be out there. So we're watching for that. Think they would probably go Duarte if they didn't have him, but I think that considering they went through full practice yesterday, I think there's an outside chance that Keegan gets that midday upgrade. So I'd be careful about firing into that doubtful tag. I would treat it as a little bit more of a questionable tag today. And then, as you mentioned, big stakes here. So we could see 40 minutes out of De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis, and those guys.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also the rivalry amongst these two teams, right? They won 7 games in the playoffs last year. There's no love lost between the two. So I would expect, even in kind of a normal remove the in-season tournament stakes, I would expect sort of a perhaps elevated minute ceiling for the main guys here, but you add in the in-season tournament components as well, and you could get, especially for a Kings team that does not trust their bench at all, you could get really, really elevated minutes here as well. Okay. That will do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show, breaking down the in-season tournament implications. As always, if you are interested in more around the in-season tournament, please check out the podcast that we put together. It's on the Established Run NBA podcast feed. You can get more information around that. If you enjoy the content that we're providing here for free as well, subscribe to this YouTube channel, get notifications whenever we go live. If you're interested in more of our content behind the paywall, you can check out establishedrun.com/subscribe-NBA for more information about our props or in-season DFS packages. So check out all the stuff that we have there. And of course, if you're really enjoying this content and you want it to keep happening for free, Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, you need to pay the pauper. Smash that like button, press it, hold it down, caress it gently, whatever you'd like to do to the like button. I'm not going to judge you, but just make sure it gets hit so it can help feed the algorithm. It helps feed our families, allows us to feed you the NBA injury information analysis you need to set your DFS lineups, make your spread bets, and your prop bets. So smash that like button, caress it gently, whatever you need to do to it. Make sure the algo gets fed. Nom, 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 nom. We'll see you tomorrow.